The problems of being a shared custody parent. I want to give you 6 problems that you will no doubt have come across if you're a shared custody parent, and also 4 tips to hopefully make life a bit easier. So some of the solutions are in the behaviour, but some of the solutions are in the mindset and the acceptance as well. Now, I'm a shared custody parent. I thought the term was Sharon, actually. I was Googling the term thinking, oh, that's a catchy thing. I thought that was an actual slang word now, you know, Sharon, and I thought that referred to shared custody parents, but it turns out it means something different. So Sharon refers to parents who share too much on social media. So parents who share every single photo of their child and every single bit of information. And when they give birth, they share pictures of the placenta, and there's just too much information going on. So I can't use the word Sharon because it's not actually relevant to what I'm talking about. What I want to talk to you about and offer advice and solutions on is the problems of being, or the complications of being a shared custody parent. It's a very unique situation. It's very, very hard to explain to people, and it can be really hard to deal with the situations because you're neither one nor the other. You know, you're a parent, but you're also not a parent some of the time, and it brings up these really unique situations. So I sat down and really carefully thought about this and came up with the top situations that I find I come across really frequently, that I can find really hard to deal with, and then came up with some advice as well. So I have 6 problems and 4 tips, and I've even made notes. And I will be attempting to edit this video, so watch this space. If it's edited and concise, I've either learnt how to edit or I've found someone who can edit. So here we go. Let's get rid of that one. Okay. So problem number 1, different upbringings. Now, you're going to have to accept that your child or your children, whether it's child or children, may act slightly differently with you than they do with your ex-partner. Okay, this is relevant for men or women, whatever kind of shit, whether it's, you know, one person has residency, the other person has custody, whether you both have shared residency. In the case of me and my child's father, we have joint residency. We have a shared residence order. So it means that she legally lives with me and she legally lives with him, which is quite an unusual situation. It's recognised in law, but it is quite a new thing, and it can make other situations quite complicated. So it's like the whole system hasn't quite caught up to deal with this because it's quite a new thing, so there's a lot of precedence with this situation. So anyway, coming back to accepting that your child may be slightly different with you than they are with your ex. And so this could relate to you having different routines. Now, you might be lucky enough to really get on with your ex and you've come up with this super duper streamlined, routine where you both put the child to bed at the same time and you both do this and you both do that. But what's more likely is that you're doing your best and your ex is doing their best. It's possible you have very little communication, or maybe it's just not easy to communicate. Therefore, you have no idea what routine your child has at their other parent's house. So what you have to do is accept that there are going to be differences, and basically you're not going to be able to control everything. As frustrating as it can be in the beginning, there might be routines that happen at the other parent's house that you disapprove of, or that you're just not happy with. What you don't want to be doing is using the child as a go-between. You don't want to be pestering the child for too much information. You don't want to be asking them too many questions about what happens when they're not with you, because what can happen, even at a young age, that the child can start to feel as if they're being used as a spy, and they can start to feel as if they can't just talk freely to both parents because they're afraid on some little level that they don't understand yet. They're afraid that, whatever they say could be used against the other parent. So what you don't want is the child picking up on conflict, and this can be really, really hard, and I've been through this myself with 2 court battles, so I know it's not easy. But what you can do is influence where you can and be the best parent you can be. Okay, so you want to be accepting that it might be completely different routine at one house and a different routine at your house, and all you can do is do what is best for you and your child. Defend those decisions if you have to. Give your child the best of yourself. Don't feel as if you have to compare to the other parent, but also don't allow yourself to be manipulated. See, some children can get to 4, 5, 6, and they start to realise that they have 2 different parents who don't necessarily speak to each other all the time, and there can be little manipulations. And I had some of this with my daughter for a while, where she was claiming she was allowed to do a certain thing, and then I would go and speak to her dad, and her dad would say, no, that's never happened. And we would kind of talk to the child together and say, look, mummy and daddy do talk to each other, therefore you have to tell the truth. So be yourself with your child, be the best parent you can be, and don't feel as if you have to change. If you're doing the best routine you can do and it works for you and your child, you don't have to change in order to fit in with the other person. If they're being very rigid and you're more flexible, just do what's best for you. Being a parent is just about doing the best you can do. It's not a military operation. So that's tip number 1, accept that there are two different upbringings. Okay, problem number 2 is that you're not quite one and you're not quite the other. Okay, so another unique problem of being a shared custody parent is that because you never truly switch off from being a parent, so sometimes the times when you don't have your child, you can suffer from a lot of guilt. And these are all things that I've personally gone through, and it could take a lot of rationalising and anxiety, and then sort of coming to a place of acceptance, really. That's all you can ever really do with any issues, is that you can come to a place of acceptance. You don't necessarily have to try and fix the problem if it doesn't need to be fixed. There's not necessarily solutions. Sometimes the solution is up here, and it's just about accepting that things are imperfect, as they often are, and that you're doing the best you can do. So if you're a parent who has your child, say, half the week, or 2 nights a week, or 4 nights a week, however it is, you may feel really guilty, and you might actually feel quite empty and quite lost the times that you don't have your child. So what you have to try and do is, when you don't have your child, first of all, you want a routine. That's a key thing. As soon as, me and my child's father split up when she was about 18 months old, and it was very hit and miss. And then because he started to become very controlling and try and start dictating that he have 4 nights a week, and I said, no, that's not fair. It went to court. It had to go to court. So what you need is a routine as soon as possible, so that you know what's happening, the child knows what's happening, and then you're not feeling as if you're just at the whim of someone else, and that you don't really know what's going on. You want a routine for your own sanity as well as the child, especially if the child is old enough to understand what's going on. And they, in the beginning, if you've just split up or not long split up, or even in the first year or so that you're not together with the other parent anymore, the child can go through a bit of upheaval and a bit of turbulence, during handover times, and that can be really distressing. That can bring about a lot of guilt. But again, you have to influence where you can. So there's going to be that upheaval. Having a routine is going to make it the best it can be. That's the best you can have it, is to have a routine. So the times that you don't have your child, you want to be doing things that are meaningful to you, and trying to release that guilt. Just trying to accept that you're going to feel guilty, but you're making the best of the situation. Okay. So that's the second problem. Okay, number 2. And then we have number 3, which is business to take care of, multitasking. This is issue number 3. Okay. So I often, because I run a couple of businesses, I often have small business commitments that I attend to whilst on the days that I have my child. Now, for you, it might be similar. It might just be that you have stuff to sort out, or that you have social engagements, or that you have hobbies or clubs or things that you're responsible for that take you away from your child for short periods of time on the days that you have your child. Again, this can cause a lot of guilt. Okay, so you have these little commitments. So, for example, occasionally on the day I have my child, I may have to check my emails, I may have to respond to somebody. There may be some research that I want to look into. I might be, just watching a YouTube video whilst my child is having her dinner, or, little things like that. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the time you have with your child is quality times, that you're giving them your time. And this should minimise the guilt on the days that you don't have your child. Because what I found was that when I was juggling too much, so I was kind of doing lots of business when I had my child, what it then meant was that the days I didn't have my child, I felt so incredibly guilty because I was aware on some level that I maybe hadn't given her the best of my time. So what you want to do is, if you have little things that you have to do, that's life. You want to give your child the best time you can give them, but you want to be honest with your child. Be straightforward with them and be honest. My daughter's 6, nearly 7. She's very bright. If I just have to concentrate on something for 5 minutes, if there's an email that I really need to read or just a response I need to do and there's a deadline on it, I will say to my child, I've just got to concentrate on this. I just need 10 minutes. Or I might just have to go out the room or go up into my room. I've just got to go and focus on this thing for 10 minutes and then I'll be back downstairs to give you my attention. But I just need 10 minutes just to do this little job I need to do that's really important. You go and play, carry on with what you were doing, and I'll be back to give you attention. And you just want to be straightforward. You don't want to be running off and hiding, and you don't want to be feeling guilty. You want to be straightforward so that your child begins to learn about life, that sometimes there are things that you have to do, and you're being straight, you're giving them a timeline saying, I have to go and do this, and then I'll be back and I'll give you my attention. And then you can say, thank you, sweetheart, for letting me go off and do that job I needed to do. You're kind of making them a part of what you're doing then, rather than just running off and locking the door and, and they don't know what you've gone off to do, and it can make them feel a bit unsettled. So that's number 3. Okay. We have number 4. I'm trying to get through all these in one video if I can. There might be some clever editing coming up. Okay. Number 4. This was a big... This used to be, this can be something that really upsets me. Where's your child today? Now, you might relate to this. There were days when I really missed my child. And there were days when everywhere I went, I'd go, if I was in town, going into various shops, going and just doing stuff, doing my business stuff or just doing stuff for me, going shopping, getting stuff done. It felt as if every single person, every shop assistant was asking me, where's your child today? Oh, where's your child today? So there are times when it can feel like you've handed over your identity and now you're just a parent. And by the way, let me know in the comments box if you relate to this. Let me know, because I've kind of felt like this was a very taboo thing. I didn't feel as if it was a normal feeling. But of course, all feelings are valid. If you feel it, it's a valid feeling. But it wasn't something I felt I could talk to people about because I wasn't sure whether I was being a bit irrational or being oversensitive, but there were days when it really kind of irritated me and upset me, and it put this awful guilt inside me that, wait a minute, so because I'm a parent, am I supposed to have my child chained to my hip 24 hours a day? And it could just be that people are assuming because they've seen you with your daughter or with your child or children, they're probably making an assumption that you're a full-time parent, especially if you're the mother. They might just be assuming that, oh, you come in with your daughter once a week, therefore I would assume that you're a stay-at-home parent, or that you're with the father, and so you just happen to be bringing the child into the shop on that day, but oh, you're on your own today, so where's your child? And the question I would get asked constantly is, where is your child? Has the dad got them today? Where is the child? Are you having a break from them? Where is the child? Are they on holiday with their dad? And it really, really got to me. It would really upset me because I'd find myself feeling quite defensive and then feeling as if I had to explain my situation. And so it was kind of, I started just being upfront, which I found hard because I found it a bit humiliating. But sometimes you have just got to be upfront, and I'll come to this a bit in problem 5 as well, about school issues, dealing with the school, if your child is at school or nursery or whatever. But yeah, so it can just be best to be upfront, but also you don't have to explain your whole life situation if it's a complete stranger, if it's a shop assistant, if it's not somebody that you would normally chat to. But I found myself, I would just say, oh yeah, she's with her dad today. And then they might ask something else or say something else, and and I might end up, you might end up saying, yeah, I've not been with me and her father aren't together. We've not been together for years, and we have shared custody. So, and then usually you get the sympathy look, which I really, really hate. So let me know if you get that look as well when you say, oh yes, we've not been, we're not together, and she lives with both of us on different days of the week, and you get that kind of look where people are uncomfortable and they just don't know what to say. But it is what it is, the thing is, in this day and age, I think people are much more laid back, much more accepting. I don't like to say the phrase broken family because I really dislike the phrase, but shared parenting and blended families, which is a nicer phrase. So blended families are very, very common, probably 50% of homes. And that, now have blended families where you have stepmothers and fathers, stepchildren, you have blendings, you have shared custody and that kind of thing. It's not a taboo thing like it would have been, say, 30 or 40 years ago. So it's best just to be upfront and then maybe move the conversation on to something else if you're really not comfortable. So, okay, I might be running out of time, I'm not sure. Okay, that was number 4. Number 5, school issues. Okay, I found this quite hard. So basically, it can be really tricky with school if your child has a book bag that comes home and there's a letter coming home, maybe one copy of a letter, and whichever parent happens to have the child on that day gets the letter. And what was happening in my case was that my child's father was keeping some of the letters, and this was one of the issues that came up in court, was that I wasn't included. I was missing out on school trips, and because I just wasn't informed. So I had to get around the problem. I had to liaise with the school, get on an email list, so I made sure I got on that list. So I was getting texts from the school and emails, and the school were usually remembering to enclose 2 copies of a letter. So a letter for mum, letter for dad, which made life a lot easier. And it also, you want to feel like an equal parent. You don't want to feel as if you're being pushed out of things, especially if the other parent is controlling. You want to both be equally involved, and that's what's best for the child as well. So I would say, if you have just split up, you've just become a shared parent, you're going through the process at the moment, I would go and talk to the school as soon as possible, arrange to go and see somebody in the safeguarding team, or go and speak to the child's teacher and just let them know what's going on. It's good for the school to know anyway, because they can keep an eye on the child, because the child might have some emotional issues or might be getting upset because mummy and daddy aren't together anymore. You have to do what's best for the child and put your own pride aside. So talking to the school, is a good thing, and you'll feel as if the school are on your side and they're looking out for you as well, especially if you're having communication problems with the other parent. You want to get the school on side so that it's not just you battling on your own, if that makes sense. So I'm going to end the video there. Those are the 5 problems. Let me know in the comments box if you can relate to any of those. Let me know which one out of the 5 kind of jumps out at you. I would really be interested to hear. I wanted to put a video out there. I'll make another video with the 4 tips, the 4 bits of advice. I don't think I'm going to fit it in one video, but I'll make a follow-up video with the tips to make life easier. But I wanted to put something out there because this is something I've never been able to really find advice about. It's just very hard. I read one article in either The Guardian or The Times a couple of years ago, and it spoke to me so much. It really moved me. I was really going through difficult times, and I read this article written by a woman all about how weird it is to be looking after your child one day and cleaning up nappies and making dinner and wiping up tears, and the next day you're sat in a coffee shop with a newspaper and you look like a single person. And this article was just so funny and so moving, and it kind of came into my mind, and I thought I want to put a video out there because this is such an emotive topic. It's really hard for people, and often people maybe don't really know who to talk to, because unless you're going through a similar thing, it can be hard to explain how you're feeling. It can be a very isolating situation unless you're lucky enough to have lots of, have friends and family maybe close by or people who are going through a similar thing. So I hope this video has helped anyway. I will do a follow-up video with the tips for you. Let me know what you think in the comments box. Again, let me know which tip really spoke to you, and I will see you in the follow-up video. Okay, thanks everyone.